Hello, my name is Roger Calhoun. I'm the owner of Guitar Wishes in beautiful downtown Lincolnton, North Carolina. We're here today to celebrate my dad's life and to honor my dad, which is battling cancer currently. In the last few days, we've done some interviews with my dad talking about his career and his uncle, Bill Calhoun, which was with Bill Monroe and Charlie Monroe back in the 20s and the 30s and the 40s. We'd love for you to watch the video and comment, because he is watching these videos and help support his battle with cancer. If you've ever been into Guitar Wishes, you've seen this beautiful wall up behind us of all these bass guitars. My dad is a fabulous bass player. This is his original jazz bass. He signed for us this Saturday. He is Papa Bill. Papa Bill's Bass Grooves is an honor of him. I'm so honored to be his son, and we're all proud for him to be a part of our Guitar Wishes family. Hey, I'm sitting here at my dad's house. We were talking the other night, we were sitting here, and he was telling me stories about Bill Calhoun. Okay, this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about Bill Calhoun, that was part of Bill Monroe and Charlie Monroe's bluegrass band in the 30s, 40s, and 50s?
30s and 40s.
30s and 40s. And Dad knows more about that than anybody around here. So this is Bill, Papa Bill, from Papa Bill's Bass Wall. Now, were you named after Bill Calhoun by any chance?
No.
Everybody just had the name Bill?
Everybody just tagged that on me because my name's William.
Was his name William also?
No, it's Leon Tillman.
How did he get the name Bill?
It was tagged on him from Bill Monroe.
So,
It had to go into the story. Bill Leon Tillman Calhoun joined the Bill Monroe band, which was Bill Monroe and his brother Charlie Monroe and a couple other guys. And they did bluegrass music. My Uncle Bill sung high tenor and played a Martin guitar. And it was rumored that after a show one night, Charlie and Bill Monroe got in an argument and a knife fight. And the band broke up. And Bill Calhoun stayed with Charlie Monroe. Bill Monroe hadn't made it big yet. And he stayed with Charlie Monroe. And Charlie Monroe kept billing the handbills as Bill and Charlie Monroe, because it's Bill Calhoun, he called him.
but everybody thought it was Bill Monroe and Charlie Monroe.
Bill Monroe.
Yeah.
And, it's deceitful, but that's the way they billed it. Most of what I remember about it is they came to Rock Hill, South Carolina, and made a double 78 RPM album, Old Glass Records, of bluegrass country music. And I have copies of it on CD. That's the last I knew of them being together. And there's probably a whole lot more history out there, but that's the last. And Bill became a Christian, and he started his own bluegrass Christian band.
What was it called?
I can't remember. Bill Calhoun Singers, probably.
Didn't they play on a radio station or something? Didn't we have a picture of them all standing around a radio mic somewhere?
They performed on local radio. And Bill, I remember his bass player. It's the only one I remember. His name was Mr. Hudson, and he played a doghouse bass.
Probably a K.
They played at Modena Baptist Church, and they traveled around and different churches and played and sung. And Bill was quite a spokesman. He would, before they sang, he would tell a lot of stories and thank God for his goodness. everything, cry a little bit, and they had a guy that picked an electric guitar back in the early '50s, which was rare, sort of rare for local bands to have electric guitars. They attended Modena Baptist Church, and the preacher at Modena back in the early '60s decided they had a new preacher, and he decided they shouldn't have stringed instruments in the church.
Come from the devil, huh?
Yeah, straight from the devil. But not realizing a piano is a stringed instrument.
But they put that in a box so it's safe.
Yeah. And anyhow, it broke Bill's heart when they did that to his church, because he enjoyed playing and singing for them. And when he was killed, they had his funeral at Modena.
Now, how was Bill killed?
Mary, his wife, said Bill woke up that morning and said he was the happiest she'd ever seen him. And he said, I feel good. I feel the best I've felt in a long time. And they said he was just really happy. And he ate his breakfast, and he worked the first shift at Firestone Mill in Gastonia. And it was real foggy, real heavy foggy that morning. He parked across Franklin from the mill, and he had to cross Franklin Avenue.
In Gastonia?
In Gastonia, and to go toward the mill, walking. And he, standing on the middle line, and I think it's about a 2-ton truck came by.
Flatbed truck.
Driven by a guy named Larry Dillinger. I have a friend named Larry, but it wasn't him. And it had a flatbed stick-out bed on it, stuck out past the cab. And that flatbed in the fog, Bill couldn't see it coming, and the driver couldn't see Bill. And
he was standing on the
caught
line.
him, and it killed him. They had his funeral at Modena Baptist Church. And that's mostly the story. I mean, sure, there's a whole lot more to it, but that's the stuff that I remember as facts. It's supposed to be facts.
One of the things I had looked up and found online, he originally had started off playing mandolin.
He did. Yeah, he
was a mandolin player.
He did.
And he didn't switch over to playing flat top till Bill Monroe left, and he came up and sung more vocals. He sung on 4 or 5 songs, I think, that they had recorded on that album you were talking about. Yeah.
It was a double album. It was 2 albums.
Yeah. Those old 78s, though, a full-size 78 would only run, about 20 minutes on both sides, right? They wouldn't very long because they was running really fast.
I don't know if they run that long or not.
About 10 minutes a side, wouldn't it?
Probably 7 or 8 minutes a side.
Right. So a double, it would basically be almost a regular album now. 6 to 8 songs or something like that.
Daddy used to have a lot of records of Bill singing on them, but I don't have them anymore.
Well, I remember that picture. Bill CALHOUN at the radio station always hung in Grandpa's basement.
Yeah.
It stayed because it always had the call letters. I can't remember what the call letters were.
I've got it downstairs.
Okay, I'll get a picture of that.
I've got all the pictures Daddy had. Later on, when Bill went around singing in churches, gospel music, Betty, his daughter, sung with him. Nancy, his daughter, sung with him some. And a couple guys, I can't remember their names, but they all stuck pretty close together. And they enjoyed making music. They didn't do it for any money or.
Now, Dad, did Bill CALHOUN ever show you how to play anything?
He showed me when I was a little boy. I admired him. He was professional, and I admired him for being able to play a guitar. That's sort of a new instrument in my life. And my dad had bought me a guitar, but nobody ever showed me how to tune it. But my dad was pushing me on piano, and Bill would come over, and him and Betty, I think, his oldest daughter, would come over and pick with me, and we would play it in the living room of our house over on Firestone. And I'm sure he showed me some stuff on guitar, but I can't remember. Bill was easygoing, nice fellers you want to ever meet. He was friendly to everybody. He ran my granddaddy's Amoco station on East Ozark after he'd get off from Firestone on the first shift. He would go in and run the second shift at the Amoco station. And he had customers that just liked him, and they liked him, and they come by and do business with him.
I remember a story the grandpa or you one had told me somebody didn't like him, or he didn't like somebody because he was at the gate at Firestone, and a couple people jumped on him, and they come running in and told grandpa why he was inside. You remember anything about that?
Yeah, Daddy's told me about it, and two guys ran in and said, "There's two guys at this small front gate that's beating Bill up." Daddy took off running out there, and Daddy whooped them both. And Daddy was a pretty strong man, and he put an end to that. Daddy looked out for Bill. You know, he loved Bill, and there's a good reason. Bill was one of his best brothers.
He had some good brothers though, all the way around.
Yeah, he had good brothers. But Bill was, I admired him all through my young life. I admired him.
Now, didn't you work at that service station too? Was Bill working there when you was working there by any chance, or he'd already quit working?
Yeah, I was about 17, and Grandpa had a pretty bad hernia, and he's going to have a hernia operation. This is back about 56, 57, 58, something longer. And so Grandpa asked me if I would run the service station, open it up in the mornings, and run it until Bill got there at 5 in the evening. And he trained me to pump. Back then, you pump gas, clean windshields, check the oil. You did a complete check of under somebody's hood.
Well, about that time when you had to get gas, you usually had to get at least a half a quart of oil, didn't you? Cars just used oil.
Yeah. And Grandpa kept regular oils like everybody else did, and he kept jars of bulk oil. And some people would come by, want the bulk put in because it's a whole lot cheaper. It was clean. But
what was the bulk oil? Where did it come from?
He had a 55-gallon drum, open top drum with a lid that sat around the back. When they did oil change, they put all the oil in that drum, and you skim it off the top, and all the sediments of it went to the bottom.
And it was clean. It cleaned itself.
It was clean. Yeah, and do whatever the customer wanted. Back then, gas was cheapest I can remember it being was 11 cents a gallon. It was a learning experience for me. But Bill would come in every evening. It seemed like it was around 5. It might have been around 4. And took over and run the station till closing time every night until Grandpa got back.
Well, the question is, did he ever bring his guitar with him?
No.
Never brought his guitar
no,
with him?
No, he never knew of him having it.
Did he ever tell you any stories about Charlie or Bill Monroe or anything happened? He's kind of quiet about that.
No, he never did say anything about it. All I've learned is My brother sent away for some information. Well, he sent away for the CDs of Bill, of the albums they made in Rock Hill, and a bunch of information came with the CDs, and that's where a lot of this information come from. And I've heard Daddy tell stories, and it's, in my mind, it's a mixture of both.
You know, Uncle Terry told me the other day he had got a bunch of information about Bill Calhoun. That's the reason I was asking you about him.
And he's the one that sent it to me.
From PBS, the PBS special. I can't remember what the show's called, but it was a new PBS about music.
Probably about bluegrass.
Yeah, about bluegrass, and he'd sent me some links to watch on that. And it was obvious when you see Bill Calhoun. I mean, he favored Grandpa a lot. I mean, there was no denying he was a Calhoun for sure.
Everybody liked Bill. You know, you're always going to have enemies somewhere.
The jealous people.
Everybody liked Bill, and he was busy. He was the first person I ever knew that had a TV. He bought a TV, and we would go over and sit, me and Daddy, and watch Test Pattern for half a day. And then come on to about 6 in the evening. And I was just a boy, and I remember the TV was in the living room, and he would turn it on. Well, it was on. It stayed on Test Pattern. Anyhow, Channel 3 would come on at 6, and they'd show an old Hopalong Cassidy movie or something, and Bill would say, "That's an old film," and in my mind there was a projector inside that set running film. And somehow or another, I didn't understand.
You thought he'd already loaded an old movie back in the back of that.
Yeah.
When he said old film, you thought there was an old film in the TV.
There's an old movie. And they signed off at around midnight. That's all the TV station there was Channel 3.
Now we talked about Bill Monroe, we talked about Charlie Monroe, and we talked about Bill Calhoun. Let's talk about you, Bill Calhoun. Now later on, you got a little older. How old were you when you started playing originally?
The guitar?
Mm-hmm.
Daddy bought me one when I think I was about 10 or 11. He bought me a guitar, acoustic. I don't remember.
Did you take it serious?
What kind? Yeah, I loved the guitar. I don't know whatever happened to it, but
what was it, a Silvertone or something? K?
I doubt it. It's probably a K.
Mm.
And I've got a picture of me standing holding it, but it was seemed like a nice guitar then. Might have been a piece of junk, I don't know. But
well, you know what,
nobody ever showed me how to tune it.
Well, Michael Reno Harold said in those years you had a Martin, a Gibson, or a piece of junk.
Yeah.
Was it a Martin or Gibson?
No.
There we go.
A piece of junk. Yeah. A K was everything that was around in cheap guitars. But everything would be a K.
Mm-hmm.
K was a banjo maker.
Right.
And
Harmony and K and Silvertone, that was the three big ones then.
Yeah, Harmony was big back then, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
Forgot about that. But Bill's, his guitar, his Martin guitar, all the family's memorabilia, all their pictures, everything they had was burned in a fire a couple years after Bill was killed. And they lost everything because I sent a bunch of pictures, and I sent the albums to my cousins out west, and Nancy and Betty, and they said they no longer had any of those photos, and thanked me for them, and said it was good to hear their daddy's high tenor voice on some of the recordings. Bill would go to churches, and I don't care what kind of church it was, he would present him and his band just as though they were doing a gospel music concert. He was professional talking, never ran out of anything to say. And
Another reason he's a Calhoun.
yeah, he never ran out of anything to say.
After you learned to play a little bit, when was the first time you played out? How old were you the first time you played out, and what kind of place was it?
First time I picked up a guitar when I was 23, and it was a silver tone, or it's from Sears. I remember that. No, it was a true tone.
True tone.
It's from Western Auto. Started learning chords. I got a Mel Bay chronological chord book, and I learned every chord I could learn in it, and got to where I could switch chords quickly, and learn how to tune it first.
Tuning is not like it is today.
Well,
it was a major ordeal to tune a guitar.
You had a pitch pipe that had each string, the pitch of each string on it, and you had to hear good enough to know when you matched your string to the pitch pipe. And there was a method of putting strings on and bringing it up to standard tune and getting it in tune in standard. Because if you wasn't on the standard pitch, 440, you'd be out with any pitched instrument like a piano. Piano is supposed to be tuned at 440.
That was the hardest things in bands, even when I first started playing, getting
Yeah,
everybody
was.
tuned together.
Everybody being tuned together.
We did have strobe tuners then, though. The big strobes
Yeah.
that sat on backstage, yeah.
They were expensive.
Yeah, right.
And
a lot of amps had a tone. You could hit a button on it and it'd give you a pitch tone to tune.
mostly Vox amps.
Yeah, Vox amps had that.
Yeah.
Mostly British
G-tuner
amps.
or a E-tuner or a C-tuner.
Right. Yeah, a lot of British amps had that. I mean, even
Yeah.
Black Star now have that.
You turn on that tune and everybody pitched to it.
Actually, I think the only American amp that has that now is probably a Roland. I've seen a few Roland that we've had that have a pitch tuner built in, but most of them are little travel amps. When you first played out, we skipped over. Where do you think the first place you played out with an actual band was, or did you play out by yourself the first time?
I think it was Moose Club, Kings Mountain. First time we played out as a band.
What kind of band was it?
It was just rock and roll band. It was back during the days of the Beatles started and Herman's Hermits, and that was just the beginning. And we played at clubs, places that really wasn't safe to go in. But the only safe club we ever played at was basically Charlie Gunn's El Condor Club.
What was the worst club? The best sounding club I've heard you say a lot of times was a place called Jerry's Lounge in Charlotte.
Jerry's Lounge,
Had the best sounding stage.
Yeah, it was a small. It was a beer drinking, dancing, rough lounge. It was dangerous.
Rough like on the Blues Brothers where they had the cage around the stage.
No, they didn't have one, but they needed one. You know, when you're young, you have dreams of grandeur and making it and all that. But it gets old fast.
Oh, yeah. It
gets old real fast. Dragging amps and
they were
guitars
heavy
around.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were heavy.
If you could have played with anybody the whole time you were playing, what artist would you have liked to play bass for that you didn't get to play for?
CCR.
Creedence?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We did Creedence Clearwater Revival. It was a lot of Three Dog Night. We didn't do any Chicago because it took horns to do that. And I can't remember the name of all the bands. We did Hendrix. We did Steppenwolf. The list goes on and on and on.
I remember Steppenwolf.
We tried to stay current on.
The Doors, you did a lot of the Doors? Or you did Come On Baby Light My Fire, because I remember you used to drive Mama crazy.
Come On Baby Light My Fire.
Yeah. Who was the lead singer then?
Probably Ray Klein.
Ray Klein. So CCR would have been the band you'd want to play with.
Yeah, that was my favorite band back then.
You think John Fogerty would have been hard to work for?
No, if you knew the bass lines, I play them exactly like they did them. We learned to pass a 45 record around while we was learning a song, and we pass it around and say, you get your part out of it. You listen to your part and you get your part, and we'd have a practice and do the song. It all come together real quick.
Who was your favorite person you ever played with? I've got somebody in my mind I know you always enjoyed, and it wasn't even rock and roll, but somebody that played guitar that you really enjoyed playing with, great guitar player.
Buddy Moore.
Yeah, that's what I would have said.
Yeah, Buddy Moore. Buddy Moore was a guitarist.
Yeah, he was a true pro, wasn't
he? He went in the Navy not being able to play. He bought him a Gretsch.
Chet Atkins.
Chet Atkins.
Was it a Chet Atkins Nashville?
I don't know. I can't remember. And he bought him a
Country
twin
gentleman.
reverb amp. And he was in the Navy, and on the ships they had a lot of spare time. He taught himself to thumb pick.
I know, he was smooth. I remember he went in the studio and made a 45 one time, come back. He was proud of that 45. Just him playing musical, guitar, backing tracks.
He was as good as Chet Atkins.
Still is, probably.
Yeah, probably is.
Who was the best drummer you played with of all the guys you played with? Don't say me, because that's too obvious.
Say who?
Don't say me, that's too obvious, and Richard would get mad.
Back in
Mike Shepard.
Back in rock and roll days, Mike was bad to drag. He was bad to start off on one speed and end up another. And I don't know. There was none of them exceptional.
Nobody's at Richard's level.
Well, you and Richard both have always been way past what they knew. They just played rock and roll drums. I mean, sort of like Ringo.
Well, you know how to learn to play bass. The whole time I was playing with you, and you would be playing bass, and your bass amp, one of your piggyback bass amps would always sit right there, because you didn't have big sound systems in these clubs and stuff, and it'd sit right there in my ear, and I learned to follow that bass drive, almost like the eagle sound with my kick drum. I'd be right on top of your bass notes. I'd got so comfortable with your bass notes.
That's the way you're supposed to play with it.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about the go-go dancers that was in the cages at the Country Palace there in Bessemer City, because Mama gets offended.
Well, the Rockin' Palace was a teen joint, and it was rough.
Was that where they guys took a cymbal and held to Mike Shepard's throat one time out back?
No, that was Jerry's Lounge.
Jerry's Lounge. Well, Mike had a way to aggravate people there, didn't he?
He had been cruising for a bruising, and these boys finally got tired of it, followed him over there, and all hell broke loose in the front parking lot. We was trying to get unloaded and stuff into the lounge, and all of a sudden, people came from everywhere. Come a crowd up front.
Do you remember telling me a story about one night y'all were playing at the El Condor Club, and Mike Shepard tied a parachute, I think it was to a Mustang, a 71 or 72 Mustang, come flying down 321, was going to show you how fast his car would stop, and yanked his parachute, and it yanked the back bumper off his car.
Yanked the bumper off.
Yeah, he might have been a troublemaker.
Remember that?
Yeah.
Marco.
Well, the question is, does Charlie Gunn owe you any money from playing? Because he still owes me money.
He probably does. Crowd would get bigger and bigger, and our money gets smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
I quit him on account of that.
But he called you back, though, did he?
Yep. He called us back and said he would pay it, told us how he would pay us. A flat rate.
Who was the best vocalist you ever had in the band?
It's probably Wilbur Dalton.
Wilbur Dalton.
We call him Willie. Wilbur Dalton. He went on after I quit ever playing. He went on and had his own bands.
How about Sonny Barnes? Was he a good vocalist?
Sonny was good at country music.
Yeah.
He
That Eddie Rabbitt sound.
yeah, he was entertaining. He could sing.
Did you enjoy guitar better or bass guitar?
Bass guitar was my comfortable instrument. I knew how to put bass lines in a song. You know, if I didn't copy a bass player, you know, I had a feel for bass.
It's been probably, about 2 years ago since me and you played together last. I played drums and you was on bass.
Yeah, been a couple years.
Had David and Scott playing.
Mm-hmm.
That was a Jimi Hendrix song.
Yeah, that was the Jimi Hendrix.
Hey Joe.
Hey Joe.
Yeah.
It amazed me that the bass lines, that song came back to me.
Yeah, it came back to you smooth.
I used to play them all the time.
When you would play bass, it was always real silky smooth. You had the punch in there, but it was almost like you would hear a cello play. It had that slide smooth. You never landed on the exact notes you slid into it most of the time. That's the reason you weren't a big Paul McCartney fan, because he was always chopped on the note. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a Paul McCartney fan, but he played a real simple style.
Yeah. Who was your favorite bass player of all the bass players you've ever heard?
That guy came up to your store. That's the best I ever heard.
Cecil?
Yeah.
Cecil Partlow? Yeah, he's a good
Partlow.
bass player. But he played a different style than you played.
You can't put that kind of style in what we was playing.
Oh, no. That's what I'm saying. He played a different style. Yours was that real silky. Did you enjoy playing rock and roll more, or did you enjoy playing the gospel music stuff when we got into playing gospel music?
I enjoyed both of them. Only thing about gospel music,
Repetitious.
you had a lot of people that show up and want to play along in churches that can't play but wants to be heard, and they get too loud.
Mm.
And they just make disruptive music. To me, if a song sounds good, I enjoy playing. If somebody's murdering it, I don't even want to be part of it.
It's kind of like that old Eddie and the Cruisers too. You know, I've played with a lot of musicians that they kick the note instead of lay into it. You know, Eddie would say that. I think it was in part 2, Eddie and the Cruisers part 2. He was trying to tell that lead guitar player he could shred like crazy and just burn up the guitar, but it had no soul. Feeling in your notes. And I think that's one of the things you taught me early on is when you're playing, whether you're playing the drums, it's not about how flashy you can be or how flashy you can be on bass or guitar. It's filling the part that's left open. That was the Motown sound. It wasn't flashy, you know? I always thought you had a real similar style, the smoothness like a James Jamerson when you was playing.
I did follow a lot of his style.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize it, but you know, during them years, I liked the Supremes and the Motown sound, and I liked the bass lines that they used.
Are you glad you played in bands and stuff? You got to experience it?
No, not now. I'm not.
Well, I know you don't want to now, but are you glad you did it then?
No, that was just a passion I had.
But you fulfilled it, didn't you?
Yeah.
You know, you was able to step out to a stage, no matter.
I could have put if I could have put all that energy towards something more fruitful, I'd been better off.
I tell you what, Kenny Poovey is one of the biggest sound guys in the state. Owns a huge sound company here. And I was talking to Kenny the other day, and Kenny runs sound for world-renowned bands, you know, bands you would think that's on the easy lane. And he says the thing he realized about musicians and then being in that line of work, even those big bands, he's coming out running for Palladium shows and things of that nature. He said they're one gig away from being homeless. He said every one of them. I noticed that just immediately when I was into it too. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I didn't. And the biggest thing about it was everybody thinks these guys are getting rich, and they're not. Most of these guys are playing truly if they're good musicians for the passion. Would you not agree?
Yeah.
It's not about how much money you can make doing it, and you got a small percentage that have the dream of making it big. Were you ever one of those guys?
If you go to the extreme, this, for instance, Elvis, it was a passion with him until he got so big. He was a company that a lot of people depended on him.
Corporation.
To make it. And so he was, without him, you know, it would have crashed and burned. And then you become beholden to managers, promoters.
Mm-hmm. You're the merchandise.
And then the fun disappears. You got to be on one side of the United States today, on the other side tomorrow.
No sleep. Uncomfortable buses. Sleeping in luggage racks.
That's not a, you know, you look at it realistically, it's no way to live.
It's miserable. You never get to know anybody. Yeah.
I mean, during all that time you're spending your life.
The time.
You're spending it. You're using it up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not enjoying it. So...
well, I think it's moderation, like anything else. If you want to run, there's nothing wrong with running. But if you run too far, too long, you wear your body out.
Yeah.
Riding a bicycle or drinking too much water will kill you, you know. And I think music's the same way. You do it as long as you're willing to apply yourself if you want to be serious about it, but you got to enjoy it and make sure you have a backup plan. Did you ever have any desires to write any music?
No.
Yeah, and I always thought that was unusual with you. I knew you never wrote any music. First thing most musicians do, and I think that's where it showed you had a passion for it instead of a desire to be a big star, is everybody, first thing they do, let me write a song and let me control my destiny and let me be the big star. You were just happy making music, weren't you?
Yeah, it's just something I enjoyed doing.
If you could say one sentence how you wanted people to remember you playing, how would it be? What would that sentence be?
That I played well when I did it. Not just a clown.
Took it serious.
Say, kids, what time is it? It's the 2,206 Howdy Doody shows.